he was basically jamming on the idea of like creating a melody out of the automation of the resonance. And basically he was drawing it in manually.
This episode is being supported by Tape It, the iPhone recording app made for musicians by musicians.
And we really love texture in a beat and in general. So like, you know, playing with electronic music and things that are synthesized, but counteracting it with just interesting samples and loops and stuff. So there was just definitely, you know, this like marching vinyl kind of like eighth note hi-hat sample. There was these kind of low end toms that we were basically referencing some stuff we would DJ. So, you know, utilizing this low end tom to play off the kick. So we were basically just trying to build up a groove. And then there's a few extra little like textural things like that. What's this thing? Oh yeah. Is basically like a group in itself that's just like a white noise saturated against like a sort of like 808 kick. So it just like crunches really interestingly. And basically there's all these like interesting kind of like points of texture that I really love, that, you know, it's like simple, but it gives the beat like a little bit more of a world and the ecosystem it lives in, as well as just like the kind of like this guy. And we tracked some live hats as well. So basically we liked that this groove is, it's very simple, it's very eighth note driven. And there's a bunch of tracks that we were referencing that are in that vein. It's very simple, very driving. We tried some more 16th beat hats, things that were busier, which we do on other tracks well. But for this, we liked that it was a really simple kind of bed for the bass line to sort of move around and undulate around. And then it's uncluttered. It's like there's less space being utilized. You know, we try to make sure we don't overclutter stuff. So,
and here comes the bass.
Yeah, I think particularly for this one, we knew we spoke about this actual sort of straighter feeling of the drums, and I think that along with this, we were trying to find some largeness like down in the bottom end. So we ended up, I think, adding this sub sort of pump to really keep that body moving down below while still having this huge riff on top. So
basically it's just an eighth note like serum thing that we made as a pulse, like John was saying. And then as the bass line developed, these kind of like pitch bends were added. So we just tracked that to the eighth note bass, so it's just locked. So like they both kind of drop off like that.
When we initially had that bass line and we were trying things, we didn't have those bends in there, and it sounded a little too robotic, or it didn't have life.
Time for a quick Tape It feature highlight. As well as being able to organize your voice memos into mixtapes, Tape It will automatically detect what instrument you are recording and tag it with an icon. If you're a multi-instrumentalist, you'll love the additional organization this feature brings to your notes library. To find out more, follow the link in the description or use the promo code TAPENOTES for 20% off Tape It Pro.
I think we were just adding some more kind of color and candy and sort of embellishing the aesthetic of the song with some more grit, and we'll play in a bit some of the vocal processing stuff we did that was kind of interesting, and sort of like crunching Ty's voice. But around that period there was a session where I think it was like 3 a.m. or something, or in the studio, and then we were playing with, I think, the MS-20, putting the reso up on complete, just slamming the reso up, and then sort of just making these like alien kind of almost theremin noises, like woo, 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 you know, just that. It's very wild and weird. And then Ty jumped on the computer and we basically set up a single note MS-20 patch for him, and he was basically jamming on the idea of like creating a melody out of the automation of the resonance. And it was so, it felt so exhilarating. We loved how like wild and kooky it was. And basically he was drawing it in manually. So it's like, and sometimes it wouldn't catch the note quite like exactly. So there'd be this interesting like half note. It's just very specific. And I think the specificity of it made it more interesting than just drawing notes in on a sine wave or whatever. So this is that. Through that whole period, there's a build up. There's also this really interesting thing where there was a drum chamber, like a reverb chamber, sorry, in the studio. So we played the drums, the beat that we'd made through it and recorded it back into itself. So there's that going on. There's like a flanged 16th note thing. It was just elements of tension, I guess.
Yeah, I think this wildness that we were playing to with this track, obviously based around what was experiments in saturation and stuff, it created this wildness to the track. But I love that with the arrangement, it was always about this big build of tension and then the pressure release. I guess that's sort of what the initial spark was. And even Tyrone's vocal starting with this pre-chorus, you sort of vibe before it drops. And then it goes into the first verse after that. And the second verse is almost in the breakdown. So it's felt pretty unique in the way that we just kept changing things up for ourselves and building things differently. And then this wildness in this breakdown with everything starting to come together into this last little experimentation too of us stretching a vocal just before the last drop was just us, again, just having fun with playing with things a little bit outside of the box.
Yeah. There's this, basically this climax moment, like John was saying, where it, and so with that, we obviously want it to be, it's very climactic, dramatic. And then we're also playing with, I really like using texture mode on, or tone mode, I think. But basically we took Tyrone's vocal and we were just like, it's almost like that old like jungle vocal being the time stretch kind of effect, having it feel like Ty's voice is being like sucked into a blender and like destroyed and crunched and crushed. So it's that same approach we were playing with the bass with Tyrone's vocal. Just like stuttering. We were playing with, parallel processing of his voice.
'Cause I can take the pressure.
With like a kind of like almost Leslie like chorus to it, and there's this in the background. With that time stretch to it as well. Yeah, so there's just a lot of like little iterations of production experimentation to make it feel like there's life to it.